What is up, Static Gamers? It is Nathaniel S5496 here today. I'm going to be talking about something very important to me, and this is regarding to my past with Halo, and just something that kind of really breaks my heart, and it's just something I wanted to talk about, and it's also kind of in regards to the clan community. So this is like my clan's history, if you will. For those who want to sit by and listen to this story, this is just me venting to the public and seeing what other people say about this, as I've never really had true closure with my clan history. And I'll be sending this to some people that know this, but this is basically the history of my entire clan, known as the B.L.C clan. And this clan has several generations to it. By generations, I'm referring to each era of Halo from when it started, and we made it into Halo 5 and technically Halo Infinite. And I'll go into the story behind that. The stories that I have, there's various stories, and if I talk about every little detail, every memory I have, this video is going to probably be very, very long. But for now, I'm just going to talk my mind out, and it all starts with Halo 3. Back when I first got onto it, I remember, technically my clan started even further than that. Started with my friends at middle school. Now, in my personal life, I wasn't a very recognized person, or in the way that I would hope, which often led to a group of people who would bully me in my own school. This is nothing that big, but eventually it became an instrumental part of my life that by the time I met my friends that introduced me to Halo, I had believed my life worthless, and so I literally had to force myself to become friends with my current best friend. I remember having to constantly interject myself into his life, and eventually we became friends because of it. I just never gave up on him for whatever reason. Anyway, what got me into Halo was going over to his house and playing Halo 3, and we really enjoyed ourselves. It was really just a bunch of young kids dicking around and not doing anything seriously. Maps that were completely unfair. Mind you, mostly my maps, because I was evil. But we had great times on them. Well, eventually that led me to want to go to online and start playing online, and so I started doing that. And I remember my first match, which was Halo 3 Guardian, and the second match I ever played was on High Grounds, High Grounds on Halo 3. And I played as an elite, and the reason why that was because when I played with my friends, when we do co-op campaign, I was always play as the Arbiter. And the first campaign mission, the first time I was ever introduced into Halo, happened to be Floodgate. That was the first campaign mission I ever played of Halo and Halo 3. And seeing the elites being our allies in that time is why I fell in love with elites in the first place. That's what sparked it. And so that's what birthed me becoming a Covenant or an elite-based player in the community. Not to mention, I just loved playing as the Arbiter. I'd often ask my friend if he wanted to be Master Chief so I could be Arbiter, and he'd usually say yes. And whenever me and him co-op campaign, he's always Master Chief, I'm always Arbiter, and that's me. And that became my identity. My friends know me for being an elite player too. However, when I got into the online interaction, my friends list grew a little bit. I noticed that in the ranked playlist, a lot of people would trash talk me for playing an elite. Turns out at the time, I didn't know what it was about, but it turns out it was about that little unfair advantage that elites have with the sniper rifle because of hitbox registration problems. I was completely unaware of it, so 13-year-old me just got pissed off and decided to literally start a clan to take down Spartans. And my earliest form in my clan was just like me, a few friends, and very small amount. And this led me to have a certain philosophical approach in Halo 3 at the earliest form. And so in the first few months of the creation of my clan, I decided to call it the Blood Elite Clan, and eventually came with the acronym B.L.C. It should have been B.E.C, but I'm a kid, so I didn't think about that. And I named it B.L.C, and the clan members at that time thought it was better anyway, so we kept the L. And it led to some pretty funny jokes later on. Other clans would call us, "Are you the bacon lettuce cake clan?" This is kind of fucking funny. We will always be known as the bacon lettuce cake. But anyway, freaking, so I ended up naming us the Blood Elites, and for the longest time it was just me, and I ran into another Sangehili clan, and it was when I met that other Sangehili clan, I adopted a philosophy that I would never kill a single elite player in matchmaking or in custom games ever again, except with exceptions in custom games if we were like just playing around for fun. But if it was anything like competitive oriented, I would not do it. And a lot of people I think took notice of that in the ranks, especially. Because if I happened to end up in a lobby with just elites, I'd literally just sit there. I wouldn't do anything. And they'd look at me all confused. I had that happen a couple times. Some other elite players noticed that I wouldn't shoot them and they would shoot me. I'd literally just look at them, look away, and start killing the Spartan next to them. And eventually some players would pick up on it and actually start working with me because I think other elite players kind of knew. And that's what eventually led me to finding my second command, which was Dexter's Block, who at the time happened to be playing as an elite, but he was mainly a Spartan user, which later becomes important for the history of the clan. And I had some very early on members like No Name Cookies and Slayer 09 and stuff like that. And a bunch of like really, really old friends of mine that most of them I don't even talk to anymore. The only one I still do is Cosmic167, who is the friend I mentioned earlier in the story, who joined our clan and then also became my best man, and now Earl is my roommate. And so we met through Halo, literally. So that's kind of how important Halo was to me. But anyway, I eventually met Dexter's Block, and I offered him to be my second seat if he wanted to help me grow this clan, and he said sure, and sure enough, we got members like my best friend and all this other stuff, and we started building a clan. And it was actually working for a while, and of course, like any small group, we were just a play group, we just did things, we followed the small taboo tenets that we had. But late Halo 3, we ran into another member who'd become crucial to B.L.C's history, and that was Oxbow, and he became our third seat. We created a hierarchy where it was first seat, second seat, and third seat, which was very similar to the covenant structure of the prophets, if you will. But it was just our interpretation of it. It was there at this point, we came up with a motto, and I think it was mainly my motto, but I think I had different variations, and I'm pretty sure I let our members vote on it. I could be wrong on that, but eventually it became something that those members actually rather respected, but it was cheesy as hell. I still remember the motto. Being elite, pull out your sword, kick them on their ass, and then give them a roar. And then when it's all dead and done, reach out your hand, say good game, just to set them back up, just to knock them down again. That was the motto. And it was very fucking cheesy. But it was also kind of very elite-ish, because in Halo 2 and 3 and 1, they would easily just pull out their ninja swords and just chase you down. Well, that was our motto. And an elite would obviously kill you, but then you'd respawn, and that's the point of set them back up so you can knock them down again. And the good game part of it was great competition. And we actually held that motto pretty well. Being elite, pull out your sword, give them a roar, and knock them on their ass. Reach out your hand and say good game, just to set them up to knock them down again. Like, that was our approach to every other clan. And I think this is why when Reach came around, when we really grew, we met different people like Demon Destroyer, Dovahkiin, Arbiter 1101, Halo Fan 100, you know, the list goes on. Some very prominent members like Too Angry Camo and Stoic Venus. No idea where they are. We also met Silverblood IV, who was our forger at the time, and Paul, who went by Glock 9mm at that point. But I actually regained contact with him recently, thank God. He went on to my history stuff, the honor honoring of the B.L.C. basically. There's a couple of members that were very important to me, and I think about a lot of these people, and my heart breaks because a lot of these people weren't just members; they were very, very good friends, and some of them aren't around anymore. And it's almost like PTSD for me because if 343 never happened, they might still be here in my life, and I understand some of them had life happen, but a lot of the ones that I know that had life happen, they're still on my friends list. They still talk to me. They're still there. They're at arm's reach if I need to. It's the ones that didn't come back. It's the ones that really, really bother me. A lot of them with not even a goodbye. They just disappeared, and it really breaks my heart. With Reach, we started developing our own structure, and I believe that we were one of the first clans, not the very first, but among the first, probably in the first few thousand or so, to do a Sangehili-based clan that accepted Spartans. Usually you would see the other way around, a Spartan/Unicy clan that would occasionally accept elite-based players. But we were like the first Covenant rank structure that actually accepted Spartans, which was like pretty much unheard of in the Halo 3 and Halo Reach era. And they did exist, but a lot of groups didn't really know what to label them. Constantly we would be called heretic or insurrectionist or blah 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 blah, but we just told them no, we're just Sangehili. And a lot of them couldn't understand that. They didn't understand, like, we were just elites. That's it. Like, we didn't care about anything else. Because I had members that were literally Covenant hierarchy based, members that were who played as elites for fun, and then members who just were Spartans. And it's like, we didn't really care. We were just kind of an elite Spartan clan, if anything. And we stood out for various reasons during our time, which is why our group grew to 300 and over 300 plus members. And the most I recorded at a single time was 309, but generally we grew up to 300, and that was just before, like, early Halo 4, and then that's when I started to see the decline, unfortunately. And for our clan back on the 360 to be that large was tough to achieve, because most clans would exceed your friends list, because at the time you could only have 100 friends on your friends list, so having divisions relied on having trust in people you cared about. And so that kind of shows you the kind of trust I did have. We had 3 divisions, and that's where we got 300 plus members. A little over, anyway. The 309 were just groups that were starting to grow. We started having a 4th division grow, but it never took off. Which leads me to some of the prominent... These are the generals of B.L.C. at that time. This would be in 2nd generation. We're past 1st generation, but we're talking about Reach, that's our 2nd generation. Anyway, in Reach, we had one of our leaders who was Ika Amputee, who became an elite general who formed a group, and he became one of the bigger, more prominent groups of ours. Of course, when Halo 4 happened, he disappeared. And then there was me at the time, where I went by, I believe I was just going by Koga 100, my original gamer tag, and was led by, again, Dexter's Block and Oxbow. And Oxbow was something else. Like, I missed that guy. He was one of those that dropped off, I think, due to life, because I don't know what happened to him specifically, but something about stuff being too expensive, and the next thing I know, we said our last goodbyes, and he never logged back in. And that one really shatters my heart, because I never got a proper goodbye from him. And I know goodbye's not necessarily forever, but not even a goodbye leaves so much uncertainty. I hope he's okay. But he was like very gangster in nature, kind of the polar opposite of me in a way. And mind you, I was an asshole at that time, so maybe not so much different, but he was our rule enforcer as a 3rd seat. That's what you would do. And he was really good at it. When a lot of people broke the rules that I gave him, he was the first person that said, "Shut the fuck up, sit down and know your place," type of guy. But he was just more than that to me, because obviously he was my best friend first and foremost, considering as my 3rd seat. That's why I selected him. And he had been around for a very, very long time. He was pretty a pretty cool guy to be around too. He was just genuinely fun to hang out with. He swore a lot, but it's one of those things where don't judge the people by their cover, and he's literally the embodiment of that, because underneath his seemingly asshole approach, he was a very honorable guy, had a sense of justice behind him, and it would really show in when he was enforcing his rules and stuff like that. And there's another moment I'll talk about later, or actually I'll talk about it now. There was a moment where I chose to disband, or was planning on disbanding, and I reverted my decision, and Oxbow was the first member that came to me and said, Goga, if you ever do that again, I'm going to take B.L.C and take control of it. And I was like, that was kind of reassuring that he cared enough, that he would continue the legacy if I hadn't. And then there was Dexterous Blocks, the second command, and he was a Spartan in our group. And this is what led our kind of unique dynamic, because I was an elite leading the clan, and he was a Spartan also leading the clan with the 3 seats. And Oxbow was also a Spartan, by the way, but he would also play as an elite. He was mainly an elite, actually, now I think about it. But he would play as a Spartan, too. He's kind of in between. But for us, it really stood out because first and second seat was an elite and a Spartan. And you almost never saw that in clans, like I said. It was very rare back in the day, I think, for Covenant-based clans to even integrate Spartans into them. And they became more common as time went on. Like later, as especially when Reach came around, it really skyrocketed. And this is where certain groups became very prominent to me. Dexterous Block was kind of my advisor in a sense. He helped me make a lot of decisions that otherwise probably would have been a very stupid decision just on my own, and sometimes even got me to think alternatively to the decisions I wanted to make. And then, so as I mentioned, B.L.C grew, and we eventually got ourselves, wrapped into other groups, because like I said, we got quite large, and certain groups like Oni took notice. Now, I'm not talking about just the little crybaby Onis, I'm talking about like back in the day, the serious Oni, the ones that would hack your shit, try to get your location, all that kind of stuff. They were trying to come after a few members, and they had been for quite a while, if I think about it. They successfully took down Slayer09. He said his account got hacked and never got it back, so I believe that was them. And then after that, another prominent member, Snowpanzer, also got hit, and but he survived. Basically, like anytime an Oni agent was sent his way, he just dominate them. I don't know why or how. And our clan was just really, honestly, just kind of fucking impervious to the fucking Oni group, because there was also one point, and I think Oni at that era took notice because of the freaking. There was a point in time. This is one of the darker times of B.L.C. where our clan got involved with another couple other clans in kind of this triangular drama, and we became kind of a support clan for another clan. There was a group known as the Forerunners, which was a clan that existed since Halo 2 and made their way to Halo Reach before they fell. And there was basically what happened is there was an internal drama, and I met them through my friend X-Hammer, who also happened to be a part of the Machinima and Halo Tracks community at the time that I was also a part of. So that's how I learned about it. And when I heard about how he took control of his clan, because his leader stepped down, and that's when the chaos ensued. Well, my clan told him, hey, you have my support, because it divided into two, because he told me the situation, the Messiah, who apparently had a group of people who could hack and whatnot. And out of worry of what was going to happen in this situation, I did what I could to rally support for the Forerunners. And this led me to join a confederacy at the time of clans. The file share system is down, but you could still find it in the file share system. And I managed to get these lists of 300 different leaders. It's not 300, it's more like 100 different leaders that made up this confederacy clan. and I got them interested in getting involved. And it was at this point I literally made Demasiah step down because he was like, "Oh hell no," and that was the power of B.L.C. But the sad thing was, after the whole ordeal, the Forerunners decided to disband anyway because they felt like they weren't going to continue on in the situation without their original leader. After what happened, they basically lost their morale, so everything I had done at that point was kind of for naught. And eventually, my group left the Confederacy at that time. And this was where our clan, like I said, really grew. I started doing machinimas in this group, making maps, challenging other clans consistently. I even have a prominent memory. This is more mid-reach, where only like 3 or 4 of us challenged an entire clan of 12 at that time. We raided their lobby, and we basically exploited their map, so they probably called us assholes and shit like that. But we raided in, and they accepted our challenge, but we ended up winning when we surpassed them by 1 point. They all rage quit. That was actually a pretty fun memory of mine. And I had like several others. I have a couple of clan battles still saved on my 360 console, but I don't know how to get them over into a viewable state so you guys could see them. But they were pretty freaking fun. I love saving that stuff. Some of them are here on YouTube on what channels I don't upload anymore, so you can kind of see the history a little bit. Maybe I'll download that stuff for a bit and let you guys see them at some point, but if you're interested, I'll link that channel down in the description. I think anyone can see those, but if I remember to link it, by the way. Anyway, so eventually, you know, Reach was getting very late stage in the game. I was doing machinimas and stuff like this, and this is where a lot of uncertainty was going for Halo. And then we heard about Halo 4, and we were like all excited for it. We were playing other games like Minecraft and stuff like that. Halo 4 happened, and you know, at first I think many of us didn't care until we got later into the lifespan, and then we noticed the community kind of dropping off. And this is also where people like Oxbow and so started disappearing as well. And so basically it was from this point, little by little, I was watching the bulk of our clan, the people who just played with us, disappear. So they just stopped playing Halo. And then before I knew it, those that were very close and integrated in the higher ranks also started leaving because of the situation. And eventually I would lose important members like Halo Fan 100, Arbiter 11101, and Oxbow himself, Glock 91 Mill, Paul, or in this case Rabies. They would all eventually drop off, and this was the point that, you know, I actually kind of eventually made the decision along with Dexter's Block to just set the clan. And this is also where we lost Ika Avuti, and eventually just a lot of members just gone. And it's just, that point really kind of broke my heart because I continued to do machinima, so for that reason I was still connected to prominent people like DeathCon, Game & Destroyer, Dovahkiin, I mentioned those. And eventually paved way to me and Halo 4 to meet Gunslinger 1998M. And ironically, I looked at these people and said, hey, why don't we just start a Halo 4 based clan? And so we did, and we called it Gonga Nations, Gallant Alliance at that time, GNGA. And surprisingly, ended up having a lot of success with it. Whoever was second, third, and all this stuff started, I was trying to do the same stuff I did before, but whoever was what jumbled around a lot. But I remember early on, we would run into some very important people to me during this era as well, who stick around with me since. And this would be Insane Vic, Sanitary Rap, Hug Cake, TMS 654, Demon Destroyer, Dovahkiin 321 some whatever, I can't remember his full, and myself. So that was like 7 people at that time, and we pretty much stayed a 7-member clan with a few exceptions where we did grow into a little bit of that stage. And this stuff, Members like Combat Cerberus also kind of sticked around, but he didn't really play. He just didn't like the game. It was kind of one of those where he looked at me and was like, "Oh, I want to play, but this isn't the game I want to play." And it's like, so I was like, okay, I understand. And he's kind of still the same way. And a lot of my members that I know about at that time is like that too, especially like Ratix, for example. I haven't seen him in ages, and even found him during Halo 5, and he thought he was interested in it at first, but then decided, nah, you know. So, just saying, it's that kind of stuff. A lot of these members, I think, would be interested in if we had our original Halo back. This is what really breaks my heart about it. And of course, so this is where the Halo 4 era formed, and this is where a lot of my sentimental kind of stuff started forming in, and where me as a leader began to change, because back then I ran with a fist, and now that fist was going away. We were now in the third generation of the Blood Elites, now named Gonga Nations, Gallant Alliance, which we didn't stay under that name for very long. So Halo 4 was pretty much just that. It was just us. It was a really small group. I was satisfied with it, and eventually we found success, surprisingly, and grew to like 30 members, because, again, looking for plague groups, this clans were the way to go. And so we found people like that, just like I'd had before in the past. And Halo 5 eventually came around, and this is where my clan really kind of started to grow, but we also started losing certain people. Like Sanitary decided to branch off and go join another group in pursuit of increasing his own skill, and all respect to him, but I eventually would run into important people like D'Artagnan, Lone Wolf Survivor, Lone Skywolf, again TMS 654, Dovahkiin, Demon Destroyer, Gunslinger 1998M. This is kind of more into the modern age of Halo. Halo 5 was also where I met Reaper. And then Monkey Lord. Try to remember all of them, because I don't think I wrote their names down as prominently. Deathstalker. God, I feel so bad. I think I'm forgetting some. I have them listed somewhere, but I do my best to try to remember every member I can. I'm also getting older, so it's getting harder to remember these names like that as time goes on. But yeah, so a lot of them became pretty much prominent to the group, and it obviously, and Insane Vic was there too. Insane Vic at this point actually became really good. He went from being worse than me to better than me, so I'm actually very proud of Vic getting better in his gaming skills and doing the things that he does, even to this day. And I'm just saying, with Halo 5, a lot of things happen, and this is where it gets into a lot of dark history for me. I didn't say everything with B.L.C already, because there's also some dark history. I'm not sure I'm ready to disclose that, but it has to do with a little bit of love and hate and all this kind of stuff. But basically, there was a point where I was just sitting on my self-made throne in Halo 5, and it was at that moment I looked at myself and just went, what's the point? You could just imagine my fist up to my face. I'm just leaning there, just satisfied, and I was just looking at myself like, what's the point? And it was at this point that I think more ever than my life, I had felt the most worthless I've ever felt. Because not only was Halo itself crumbling, that so-called position I put myself in didn't have the same meaning that it did with my prior friends, and that's why I miss B.L.C so much. In Halo 5, we went back to calling ourselves B.L.C, and I did my best to uphold them to that. We even did Covenant themes like we did before. I brought back the original rank structure and all this stuff, and we grew. We had a first, second, and third seat and whatnot, but members that were important to me at that time and that we really needed, one of them dropped off, and that was Gunslinger 1998M. He was I would say he was the major glue of it all. After he disappeared, it was basically mostly just I that was keeping the group together, because there was a point where I thought about giving the position to other people, and we tried second command and all that when it was supposed to be Gunslinger or Dovahkiin. It just wasn't working, and The only reason people were showing up was because I was still playing, but my ability to be on was becoming less and less as life went on. Eventually, I'm not going to sugarcoat. Eventually, I ended up falling in love with one of the members, and it worked at first, but then really backfired. And I'm not going to go into too much detail, but it led to me eventually deciding that being a leader was it for me. So I decided to. I told everyone that I'm done being a clan leader, and I really probably shouldn't have done that. But this time, unlike previous B.L.C, I didn't have an oxbow to sit there and tell me, "Hey, get back on your feet." There was literally no one there to tell me to get back on your feet. I didn't have the same supportive friends, and the one friend who probably would have told me that didn't have internet at all at the time. Gunslinger 1998 M. And so this led to me utterly collapsing, and while I still tried to dabble with that one particular member, it didn't work out, and it led to fights. And this was the point where I was also dealing with problems in my real life, and just everything began to overwhelm me to the point that I was on the verge of taking my own life, and I had made a prayer to God that if he wasn't going to do anything about it, or what was going on in my life, whether it be anything. I even mentioned the military. I told him I was going to take my life if he didn't show me sign that he was there. And 15 minutes later, after I made that particular prayer, my boss Andrew, because I was at work at this time, my boss Andrew came up to me and handed me a recruiter's card saying this recruiter was looking for you. No idea how the recruiter knew it was looking for him, but I took it and I called him, and before you guys know it, that's when I went to the army here on this channel, in case you're wondering. So we're getting pretty close to recent history. When I was at basic, at first I didn't believe I was worth anything. I really didn't, and I couldn't, my brain wasn't processing that I was doing the stuff. It took me halfway through basic to finally realize, hey, yeah, I'm doing it. Because I'd be literally, in the beginning, I'd be literally doing it, but crying and telling myself I can't do it. Not literally crying. Crying isn't the right term, but whining, I think, is better. It's just more like, I can't do it. I can't do it. Like that. But I was doing it. There was a suffering doing it. But it was a suffering that I needed. And the military was exactly what I needed, because they broke everything down about me, from my depression to my anxieties. They took it all away. I don't know how else to explain it, but they saved my life, because they broke me down and then built me back up. And because of that, I am able to stand on my own 2 feet again, much like I did with the original B.L.C. Anyway, the reason why I mention this, because eventually this led to when I decided, hey, I'm going to make another clan, and we were going to do it with people from the military. And we were doing that. I got some of my battle buddies, and we ended up renaming G&GA to G&GC, Ganga Nations, Ganga Competitive. That was the name I came up with, just to reiterate it, because I decided, well, they're not B.L.C. These members are never going to be like B.L.C. And this was an era in my life I needed to learn to let go, so I took the time to let go. And that's when I let go. And I came back from the military, rebooted the clan up, and for a while it was successful. But of course, we all know how current Halo went. And so right now, my group is just kind of in limbo with no reason to really play the game. And it's kind of sad that that's where it came to. And I had said that if this time the clan doesn't work, I'm shelving clans forever and never coming back to them. At least not as a leader, anyway. So one thing that I do want to mention, though, is that the clan community is genuinely hated these days, and I can understand why. Certain groups, like the Flood group, for example, existed, but even them in the past were far better and more respectful than they are now. They existed in Reach. I remember having to deal with them, but in Halo 5, even a small group like myself that kept to myself had a prominent problem with them. And same with like the stupid Oni clones and all that different shit. And it was just, it's weird, because back in the day, being in a Sangehili clan, you'd still be respected for being a clan. And like I said with my original model of B.L.C, a lot of clans did respect us because of the way we treated them first. And because of the way our members were, I did even allow my members to trash talk other clans as long as at the end of the day they gave them GGs, genuine sense of GGs, and which we did. And this led to a lot of clans respecting us because not only did we often talk shit and win, but even if we lost, we would tell them we would twist it around and say you guys are honorable warriors. So when we were beaten, we still showed a symbol of respect, and we'd literally kneel before them or something like that. And clans back in the day came to really respect us, but we did the same thing in Halo 5 and Infinite, but clans today are just genuine assholes. They don't know how to respect each other anymore, and it really shows. Because the entire competitive and casual communities hate the clan community for this particular reason. Because they take them to so much extremes, and just thinking about my previous clan and how things used to run when I was in position, and how I engaged with other clans that even clans that despised Sangehili clans at that time still held a level of respect for those that were there, and I just don't know. I don't know where that's gone and what happened and why we as a community had lost that. But I see it in just about everything we do, and it's very disheartening because there was a time and a place where no matter who or what you were respected for what you did in your communities, and it didn't matter really where you were in the position. All I'm saying is that this has been one long road, and for me, this was pretty much my entire history with Halo, and there's a lot more to it, like very big details that I left out, you know, um, like when certain members, prominent members left, and certain battles that we had, and all this different stuff, but B.L.C is a special place in my heart because they were my family, and they will always be my family.